All right, good morning, everybody. All right, thanks for turning on webcams. Appreciate it. All right, we're here at almost the weekend. Mohan, why don't we start off with the TA tip of the day? And today what we're going to do before, just big overview, we're going to talk about projects 3 and 4 because they're being assigned today. So that's the next step. And then we're going to jump right into presentation. So Mohan, what do you have?
Right. So starting today, you will be asked to find themes from the feedback you receive for your class activities on every Friday. So this activity will help you understand how to analyze the responses you get from the users and decide how can the system be improved. And the identifying themes will help you like overall bigger themes instead of focusing on smaller details like if someone asks you to change the color of the button. So here is the example of feedback we received in last activity. I haven't shared this, but I wanted to demonstrate how to kind of like find themes from each of these responses here from different people who provided comments on your project. So if you consider the first project here, there are like around 9 to 10 comments from the users. So if you were to start theming up around these comments, first thing what you have to do is like separate out the individual ideas. For example, this feedback is very lengthy. It has multiple ideas, like it discusses about results page and it discusses about the full abstract uh, hovering over, and it also suggests some new ideas. So separate out those ideas and then find different themes, not in terms of like the changes, but in terms of the overall ideas. For example, here you see that people have commented on like they like similarity to Google Scholar in this comment and even in this comment. So that shows that it's a theme that identifies similarity to existing interface is liked by users. But at the same time, users commented on like they wanted a neater UI and they wanted less buttons, and that shows people have issues. People have problems with like a lot of buttons on the interface, and that can be another theme. And you will be using this kind of exercise to identify top 3 things. If there are less comments on your activity, if there are like only 2 themes, that is fine too. And this is like a precursor to a next activity that we're going to discuss next week. That will give you another way to identify these themes using affinity diagramming. Just a heads up on that. And I think that's the today's TAD.
Okay. Yep. So again, big picture, when you get a lot of people providing feedback on anything that you're developing, especially from an interface, everybody has an opinion. All right. The thing that we want to get good at is not responding to every piece of feedback. Right. So it's almost like if you're driving a car, I think a lot of us know that something happens. The worst thing to do is just, unless you have to, like swerve the car too much, right? Because you go one way and then what happens? You overcorrect the other way and it goes, and that actually causes a worse situation. So I'll tell you a story, for example, this comes from my startup days at Shadow Health. The people at customer service would field a call saying, people don't understand. I got a very frantic call from one of our instructors that said they don't understand how this menu is laid out. We've got to change the menu layout. Okay. So think about it from that customer service person's perspective. This person has heard something from a customer and it's that customer is very frustrated. Right, it comes rushing in, and that we've got to change it. Well, what's the danger in stopping everything you're doing and changing it? And have anybody been in that? I see Andrew nodding, is laughing. Have you been in a situation where that's happened? Has anybody else been in a situation want to tell what happened and what was some of the challenges with how to manage something like that?
I'll go ahead and speak. Yeah. So I've actually had where our sales group had a meeting, called an emergency meeting because of feedback that they received from one group of users. And it was, honestly, it was a training issue. They just hadn't seen how to do things on it. It was a new system. They hadn't seen how to do things on it. But if we had made the change, first off, we would devoted all those development hours to making the change that they wanted, which is a lot of man hours versus a half hour of customer service time. And two, all of our other customers would have suddenly had the rug pulled out from underneath them, because all the other customers were happy with the way we had designed things.
Yeah. And so one way to, but you don't want to just dismiss what people are telling you. This could be the front of a wave of something coming in, right? So how can you avoid that? And that's what we're talking about here. Is in the business world, they sometimes call this a root cause analysis, RCAs. If you ever hear of 5 whys or fishbone analysis, I've done those things plenty of times. But it's to try to get the root at what it is. Because Andrew brought that up. The root was a training issue. It really wasn't an interface problem. It was a training issue, right? And so the only way you get to that is you have to make sure you collect enough data where you can at least start to see some trends, and then do the theming. There's an English expression, see the forest for the trees, right? Sometimes if you're driving, you hit a tree, like all you're paying attention is, I hit a tree, right? But hold on a second. If you want to take a look at the big picture, that's the forest. In this case, it's to come up with themes. Okay. All right. So great point. All right. I think that's worthwhile, because that's a skill you can take into all your research projects moving forward. When you get participants, don't overreact for the first couple. That's why you do a pilot study where you get several people to come in through, right? If you go into business, same thing. You want to take themes. So we're going to teach you this qualitative approach of how to look at a lot of data, pull out the relevant things, and then act on the highest priority ones that you see there, right? Because you never have infinite resources. You can't fix everything also. So you have to find a way to prioritize. This is going to teach you how to do that. Okay. All right. So the next thing before we jump into the presentations is we are assigning assignments 3 and 4. So today, project 2 is due. I know a lot of you have, again, I want to commend you for trying to get together, trying to find a project. I know this is always the hardest part for every time we teach HCI. This is the hardest moment right here. Okay. And I understand a lot of you have had challenges, and Mohan can tell you, this is the tough part, but the learning that happens from how to move away from a feature set, like, oh, I don't like this feature, like I don't like where these buttons are laid, and to really understand, be able to identify an underlying problem and then apply a core HCI concept is going to be critical. Now, one piece of feedback I'll see when I see a lot of the presentations again for what HCI concept, a lot of you are trying to throw the kitchen sink at this. Well, I'm going to apply Fitts law at Hick-Hyman because we read a paper on it. Then I heard about Schneiderman's 8 rules, and I heard about these 5, and I'm just going to do them all. Of course you are. Like that's not an HCI concept that's going to fix the problem, right? So the concept is, so of course you're going to apply all 8 of Schneiderman's rules. That's not a surprise, right? If you say, hey, I'm going to apply Fitts law, you should. If you don't, that's not good, right? But that's just going to improve the interface. Is it going to fix the problem? So some people have talked about nudges. Some people have applied core concepts from other domains and said, hey, what we're trying to do is we're going to apply this concept to this. And that's what we're looking for. So I want you all to think about this. When I say HCI concept, don't think of this as an a la carte menu of I'm going to just put together a bunch of stuff and just say, yes, I'm going to do it all. Because again, at the minimum, if you don't apply Fitts law and you're in an HCI class, they would fire me, right? Because I mean, they're saying like, dude, you are a terrible teacher. You should be applying that. So it's not a surprise by saying, but Fitts law won't solve the problem, right? Fitts law is, again, you should. I'm not saying don't apply Fitts law. I'm saying if you say the HCI concept that you're going to use to solve the problem is Fitts law, then it's unlikely that you really found the problem. Okay, so that's a bit of feedback, but this is the hardest part. I want to say you all are doing a good job. I'm going to work with a couple more groups. I know to continue to improve things, but the reason why I'm spending all this time with you today is I don't want you to spend all this when you're in March and April struggling to get a study done. We were trying to reduce that. Okay, all right. So I'm going to share my screen. The next 2 things have just been. Okay, so here we are. Oops, fresh screen. Okay, project three is simple. It's build a project. This is build your interface. What we're going to do is you're going to have your interfaces. You're starting to work as teams. You've hopefully started working already. You will give a presentation to us on Monday, the 21st. This is going to be online. Please pay very close attention to this. There is one section of this class, which I think has 5 students in it, which has to have one in-person meeting this semester. And we're going to do this. I tentatively targeted March 21st. That's a Monday. I will get you the room and everything. Everybody else, it's going to be hopefully the same time. Just stay where you are. If you don't want to come to class, if you don't have to be there, don't come to the in-person. Stay online. Everybody else, March 21st will be a normal day. For 5 people and myself, we have to have an in-person. This is a rule. I won't comment on what I think about the rule, but it is a rule that we have to have an in-person graded event. And so this is going to be the graded event. Okay, it's going to be March 21st for the 5 students and myself. I think there's only 5 in the class, and it'll be socially distanced. We'll be coming in. We'll all wear PPE, and we'll get through this presentation, and then we'll all return to fully virtual. Everybody else, you also attend class today, but you just click on the same Zoom link as you always have, and you just will do the same thing. Okay, so for 90% of you, nothing changes. For 10% of myself, we have to be in a room. I will get you that information. Mohan, I don't want you to be in the room either. Just stay where you are. I want everybody to feel safe. I think, don't take any additional risks except for those 5 folks. I'm sorry. I have to do it too. It is what it is. Okay, so you're going to have a presentation on Monday. You're going to get feedback from us. So I just don't know the section number, so I left these XXX. You're going to give a presentation on Monday, and then you're going to receive recorded feedback from us that Monday evening. And then your final report will be due on Friday. So you get about 5 more days to improve things or fix things from the feedback, right? So you hopefully try to get you again some stuff there. Okay, so what you have to do is you build the interface for your project, and you're going to give a 5-minute presentation of your project. You're going to give a demo, and then you're going to explain what works, what doesn't work. Yep, and then you're going to turn in a report. Your report is going to describe the system. You're going to have 4 weekly bills. So in week 1, you're going to do a sketch prototype of your system and show that to people. Week 2, you're going to show a working version of your system, fully working, that you can provide. You get what's called face validity, where you show people your system and get their initial impressions. That's called face validity. That should allow your clients and users to say, yes, this is on the right track. Speak aloud feedback, which we'll go into more of these types of feedback approaches. It's going to be the next week. We're going to have people go through and speak their thoughts as they're using the system. And then week 4, you're going to do a usability evaluation, and also a try to break it feedback. What that means is you're going to actually get people to, and their goal is to try to crash your system, right? So they're the ones that are trying to click on everything and try to put in some weird states and things like that. You're going to post pictures of your Trello board. That's going to be part of the assignment. So, and here it's just screenshots. So you can just put that in there to show that you're constantly using that as an up-to-date way to track work. And then again, so here's something new. I want you to talk about how your application works from novice, intermediate, expert users. What this means is I want you to think about your interface. If a novice were to use it, how does it work? How does it approach that class of users? What about intermediate user, somebody who's been using it on and off? So an example of intermediate user for myself, I use, let's say, my.ufl.edu. I don't love using it, so I only use it when I have to, which is about once every couple of weeks. So that's an intermediate user. An expert user would be somebody who has to use the system every day. And then explain how HCI principles and identifying proposal are applied to your project. Again, I want to see the main core idea. I don't need you to go list all 8 of Schneiderman's golden rules and try to put all 8 in there. All right, so that's project 3. The next thing is project 4. So you're going to do both of these concurrently, right? Here's project 4. Project 4 is to submit an IRB. So project 4 is to complete an IRB form. And to complete an IRB, you're going to have to create all your questionnaires, you're going to have to create a consent form, and you must complete your training, both IRB 803, and then there's another training called City Training, which is all on myufl.edu. Again, if you're going to be a PhD student, you're going to have to probably do this anyways for your research, so this is going to knock it out. If you are a master's student, you're going to get involved with research, you're going to have to do this. So this is going to save you time, stuff you have to do anyways. Now, Mohan, we're going to provide folks, okay, reminder, if folks want or anticipate potentially disseminating your research from this study, you want to publish a paper on it or try to submit something, you're going to have to fill out an official IRB form. Let us know that you plan on doing that. You go through my.irb.ufl.edu, VPN, and that'll help you. Mohan, what are we going to provide people so you're not going to have to do this from scratch, right? Mohan, we're going to provide them a template.
Yeah, I'll be providing one of the template study that was approved for my research. So you can use it as a guidance for writing your own IRB.
Mohan, how long do you take to fill out an IRB form? I know you've done it before, so it's not going to, and we'll actually spend one class period or maybe 5 minutes, Mohan, if you just talk, we can go through an IRB, your filled out IRB, maybe next week, but just give us how much time do you set aside to fill out an IRB form? If you know what your study design is going to be, and you know what your questionnaires are going to be, how long? So really, honestly, if I were to do this, I would actually flip this. All right, so if you were to work on it in order, because you have to have the consent form, you have to have the questionnaires done before you fill out that. How much time, if you have the questionnaires and the consent form and you knew your study design, how much time would you allocate, Mohan?
It would be like 1 hour.
Okay, 1 hour.
The content ready.
It's not, this is not hard. I hope people have seen, I think a couple of people have gone through it. They've told me they overthink this a little bit. And here's the big tip. You are filling out this form because you have to think with the IRB hat on, okay? So you're filling out this form because they're not evaluating the scientific merit of your study. They're trying to see whether you're running a study that is safe for participants. So here's an example. When one of the questions will be, are you recruiting children? What do you check there? Yes or no? Answer is no, right? And why? Because children, you are not going to, if somebody who's 17 comes up to you and says, I want to be part of your study, you're going to say, sorry, not going to happen, right? Now, here's the next question. One of the questions they're going to ask you is, are you going to recruit pregnant women? What do you check there? Now, again, think about this from the IRB perspective, okay? The answer is yes. Now, not intentionally, but you're not excluding them, because if you check no, that means you're actually going to screen people out for being pregnant. If somebody comes up to you and says, I'm pregnant, you're going to say, oh, can't be part of my study. Are you going to ask people whether they're pregnant in your survey, just like that? No, you're not. So you could potentially, but what they're checking for is, are you going to put any protections in place for women who are pregnant? Now, if you say this is standard computer usage, then you say there's no additional risk for somebody who's pregnant, then that's what they're looking for. But you see how it's a different way to think about your study. It's not just answering a question because again, what you're saying is you're going to recruit people. Some of them might be pregnant. That's in terms of most of your studies, none of your business, right? What you are saying though to the IRB is that you're not putting any additional risk if somebody were pregnant. So that's an example, again, of how when you're filling out this form, some people initially think about it as, okay, I've got to try to fill out a scientific form. Because if you read a research paper, they wouldn't report on pregnant women unless that was part of the research question. It probably wouldn't be part of it. So why are they asking it in an IRB stance? Because they're looking about it for protection of participants. Okay. Okay, so we'll guide you through this. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, but you have to get all your ducks in a row. They said that's right. So if you get all your forms and everything ready, then it's very quick to fill out. But we're going to go over the template early so you can see what you need to get ready for the study, but which is basically all the steps that we asked you for in this class. So this will not be a surprise for folks. Okay. All right. We're down 30 minutes. Okay, so we gotta go. All right, we're gonna go to presentation, and I'll keep the feedback to a light minimum. And if we're starting getting really bad about it, I will may switch over to give feedback in written format later. All right, Mohan, can you help us, please?
Yes. So here are the two links. One has the group details, the other has the feedback survey where you can provide feedback for your projects that are being presented. Also, I've added a new field called like voting for the best project. So you can add yes or no for that, and we can tally later. We can start with the first group.
And who won last time, Mohan? Do you remember?
Yeah, I posted it. It was.
Did you post it? Oh, you posted it inside the chat, right? I was in room 6. So good job with room 6. Kudos. Maybe we'll keep track of who wins, Mohan, and at the end, I'll send you a $10 Amazon gift card. Whoever's got the highest most room wins. Because or your choice of gift card. If you're anti-Amazon, whoever you want. But it's on me, out of my own dollar. My wife isn't listening right now, so I always like competition. I always like to try to win something. So $10 for whoever can win the most points. Okay, thanks. All right, Mohan, go.
You can start with the group 1. So we'll be presenting for your activity.
Yeah.
Keep it to 2 minutes and 1 minute feedback.
Yeah, and you notice people are getting full points without taking up the full 2 minutes. So yeah, all right, who's going? Anthony, Shivani, Bharath, and Vanessa? Bharath, I'm sorry.
So Anthony was going to present, but I guess maybe he's not here. So let me pull up the link real quick. And present.
Thank you.
If group 2 is ready, they can start.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Thanks for pinch hitting there. But so yeah, let's start with room 2 then. All right, Katrina, thank you.
Okay, so according to the paper, AR prevents students from having as much kinesthetic learning as they might otherwise have. And also in the paper, the students that saw AR representations were more effective in developing their understanding of structures and movements, in that case pertaining to electric currents and magnetic fields. So we wanted to pick a topic that enabled students to learn about something that would otherwise be invisible or only visible with difficulty, while making sure to pick a topic that didn't require kinesthetic learning that would be disrupted. So after discussing our different ideas together in the group, we decided to go in a medical direction because medical students often spend many hours studying pictures of the human body parts and organs. And after they study the images, they might start dissecting animals or cadavers and labeling the different parts that they've learned from these images. This is often a messy business, and things might get lost in translation between paper and real life. So, and the paper we read mentioned that student engagement is critical to learning, and that augmented reality has been shown to be highly motivational for users. So by using AR here, we hope that medical students will be able to more easily and effectively remember the different body parts and where they're located. So this interface basically allows users to see what's in front of them. And if they then use their hand to hover over the switch view, then it moves on to show the overlaid AR view with like the different parts of the body labeled. And the user can like look up or down and see the different parts of the overlaid body. And they can walk around the body and sort of look at it from different angles to see the different angles of the organs. And this is could be useful. And then also if they want to see sort of a side angle of sort of just a specific body part, the user could tilt their head to the side and see sort of the skull. In this case, the skull, they would tilt to the side and see the side view while being able to also still see a bit of the front view of whatever they had selected.
Okay. So quick feedback, anatomy and physiology. One of the things, a lot of people think anatomy is something really useful because it's so spatial. A lot of people don't have difficulty learning anatomy. They actually have much more difficulty learning physiology, which is how the pieces interact with each other. So that'd be the thing to really show there. It's not just the location of stuff, which again, I've seen a lot of different demos. HoloLens has a slick demo around that. Anatomy, if you talk to A and P teachers, the A is easy. The P, physiology, how things are moving around and work. That's the hard part. And that's really an opportunity for AR. So that's just some feedback on that, but good job. Okay, all right, let's go back to room one. Vanessa, you ready? Thank you for stepping in.
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so our project is very similar. And like you said, it relates more to physiology than anatomy. So in the real world, it would be like a situation where a professor is sort of doing surgery and they're doing I guess theater is what they call it. So the students could see what's going on with this body. So the issue that we wanted to tackle based off the paper was not understanding sort of more conceptual ideas. And so we figured that having like the organs highlighted that were being operated on would be sort of essential because obviously they would need to see that better, and then like being able to like pull it apart and seeing how the different parts work, and then also potentially having an option to show like as the students are seeing this person being operated on to see like an overlay of like a healthy version of whatever this organ is, to then see like how is this supposed to be functioning, how are we supposed to be changing it, and understand the concepts behind that. We also added like an explore more feature to understand the physiology of it and like the different connected components of the body and see how each part affects the others, and then also some added features that they might need to know during operation, like the beats per minute, the blood pressure, the body temperature, and then also being able to like the added features of like zooming in and out and like turning things, just so it's more conceptual while also seeing this body and not fully knowing what's going on from the theater.
Okay. So one of the highlights that you highlight a very important use that a lot of people in augmented reality are thinking about, which is if you're looking at something, the information is right there, as opposed to looking at this on another screen, right? So you are actually leveraging something that a lot of people in the space are trying hard to do. It involves cognitive load, because if you have to look at something, look away, look at something, it's hard to map those two things together. So that's a really good point. And I like that you talked about conceptual, larger objects, more than just where things are, but how things are related. So that's definitely where the field of AR is going. Good job. All right, group three, please.
Hi, so I'll be presenting for group three. While we considered several different ideas for applications of AR, such as astronomy, we settled on the field of aerodynamics. We felt that based on the observations in the paper, and especially the use case that they considered in electromagnetism, aerodynamics shares a lot of the same problems in terms of being able to visualize all the various different forces at play with vehicles or airplanes as they move through the air. So while you could have a professor teaching with a model of a car and certain diagrams depicting how airflow works, where forces are applied, having to constantly refer to one cross section of a diagram is can be distracting and not as helpful. So if you have an AR augmented view where you can actually see how the air flows across the object with the intensity and the colors of the arrows depicting where it speeds up or slows down, where vacuum spaces are created, which paths different forces are applied to, with the arrows again depicting which forces are larger in intensity as opposed to lower, it can be quite helpful in visualizing all the different aspects at play. Another feature with AR that enables us to do is that while with a non-AR view, you see one cross section and how forces are applying to it, you could actually physically move around this model in real time and gain a perspective from different sides of the object in question. So you could get a side view, you could just quickly move around and get a rear view not having to constantly refer to different images, slowing down your uptake of information. This can obviously be extended to various different objects like airplanes or whatever you may be studying. Also, while normally to visualize this, a lab would require, a wind tunnel or something like that, which is quite expensive. An AR-based system could also allow a lower cost option and make it a little more accessible to gain this kind of information for more students.
Okay. So well, one, if you have a car like that and you paint it green, that's a travesty. Two, I think you really have to think about what's your learning goals here. And is what's the difficulty in learning? So while I would agree that that would be a very interesting look, I would want to make sure that you were working with whoever, if you're, let's say, with the thermodynamics or whomever professor who's trying to teach something. Is this really going to, well, what are you going to evaluate the system on? So that'd just be something to think about. Are you really teaching something that people have difficulty on? Just like anatomy and physiology. Are you focusing on anatomy or the physiology part? You want to focus on what's the physiology, what's the hard part to teach. All right, let's go to group 4. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Group 4. Yep, thank you.
Yep. Sorry. So I was just getting everything set up here for just a second.
Mhm.
So one educational area that our team identified would be great to explore in AR is chemistry. So the paper mentions that AR can improve student understandings of structures that are spatially complex or invisible, and chemistry is one subject with such structures. And I personally struggled with this whenever I took chemistry, so I really thought that this would be a helpful idea. Visualizing atoms and molecules and other various interactions that are far too small for the eye to see could be made much clearer with augmented reality and some simple objects to overlay on, such as paper cubes or spheres. So we decided to use paper balls to represent our atoms. And yeah, with the topic of chemistry in mind, this is the interface that we designed. We envisioned that this is going to be a chemistry education application that would help students identify and interact with different types of molecules. The user would be able to crush up the paper balls to represent the atoms, and the interface would be able to detect how many atom representations are present simply by the number of spheres present on this in the viewing area. And the atoms detected would show up in the top right, and you would be able to select from a set of molecules in this drop down that are educationally relevant. And we decided that more research or communication with a potential client would be required to actually determine what molecules are educationally relevant and what we want our students to be learning. The way that it would work is users would be able to move the atoms in close proximity to each other and move them farther apart to either create or break the bonds of the molecule. And we've also included some helpful educational overlays that we would think students could benefit from, like the Lewis structure of the molecule. And the basic mental model that we built this off of is actually very simple. It's just building blocks. So like, I feel like a lot of people have this from a child. You have different small basic elements and you put them together and you build something bigger. So that is essentially what we were trying to do here, is really an interactive, playful type thing of, how many atoms can I put here? What can I make out of these? So.
Yep, great job. So one thing I want to highlight that you're doing here, when people think about AR and VR, what I always tell people is give people superpowers. So choose a superhero, and a lot of people know what superheroes are, but what you've done is you made people Ant-Man, right? So you shrunk people down, right? They go down to and so when you do that, it helps explain to people why that might be valuable, right? So if you could shrink down, you can actually get a different visualization. So good job. So the tip that I was giving people is think of superheroes. So here is, if you can give people superhero powers, whether it's X-ray vision or scale or see the future, whatever those are, Doctor Strange or Ant-Man, that's one way to conceptualize. So good job. All right, let's move on to the next one. Group 5. And group 6, why don't you go ahead and discuss amongst yourselves who's going to present, so it'll hop in quickly. All right, thank you, Edwin.
Okay. So the results in this paper showed that AR technology can be useful and engaging, but also that its overuse affect participant performance. So our group decided to use AR as support to teach basic electronic and circuit analysis. circuit analysis can be complicated, especially for a student starting in the subject. Concepts like current flow and voltage are terms that students have to understand, but those are variables students actually can see them. We have identified 3 activities applications where AR can be a good help for these labs and for learning these concepts. That will be building a circuit, check if a circuit is right built, and checking the current flow. For example, for building a circuit, usually students are given a schematic and they have to build a breadboard. So what we do here is when we hover our phone or our application, the schematic, a breadboard with guidance for building appears, so they can more easier build this breadboard. The second application will be checking if it's right built. Let's say that they build this breadboard, this circuit breadboard from this schematic. How do they know if it's the right circuit? So what we do is we hover over the breadboard, and a circuit resembling the one that they have built appears in the application. Finally, and probably the more important because it's one of the most difficult one, is students have to analyze a current flow in circuits. So seeing that is difficult, visualizing that. When we hover over a circuit like this one, just elements and arrows appears to resemble the current flow of the circuit. That's about it.
Great. I think great application here. Anybody's taking a circuits class? You gave me flashbacks to my circuit class, which was not a good experience. If you can appreciate the value of seeing things in the moment and overlay the objects right there, right? And it really talks about the trial and error as you're moving things and seeing how things change really makes the connections in people's minds. It's the real-time nature of AR. So good job with that. All right, let's go to group 6.
So I will be presenting for group 6. So basically we were thinking about, we really like the educational aspect of the paper. And one thing that we wanted to focus on was, using this finding from a paper that without AR, education, like people in this group were significantly lower on different aspects of like engagement, like aesthetics, focus, interest, and involvement, and curiosity. So we also kind of work with these students who do science labs in middle school or even elementary school, and we always give these kind of physical body models of humans, and they have to like dissect and see what is inside. But with like a AR technology, you could actually see of course an annotated version of what is each body part, and also seeing like other views of the body that cannot be presented in the physical way. For example, an animated showcase of the blood flow over the body, or the neural networks that are connecting every body part, which is kind of an interesting part about AR. And another thing that so we think that this can actually improve people's engagement and curiosity, especially because they're kids and they find these kind of animations motivating and interesting. So if they want, they can select a specific body part, and that would basically pop up some more information about that specific body part and show like specifics on the different parts of that organ. But one thing that is also different that we thought it might be useful is having a list of different diseases or conditions that can affect these organs. And then basically if people selected, they could see the difference in AR. So for example, we can kind of see like what is the difference between a normal lung versus the lung that has cancer or smoke. So then with AR, we can probably overlay a lung that is already there in the physical body and then show the disease so that people can understand the disease better.
Okay, thank you so much. So the main thing I always want people to think about is, can you just do this on a desktop, right? Do you need the actual AR part? Because that's a lot of additional stuff. You've got to hold the thing up. You've got to, so there's a lot there. Now, one thing you said at the end, though, was really, really interesting. You said, well, what happens if you look at a smoker's lung, for example, versus a non-smoker's lung? And there's some work that says, well, what happens if you saw that on yourself? Would that actually impact you? To think about that. They found that with retirement and aging people. So that's where I could see the AR part really helping. So just thinking about where the AR part, because I always say, is it easier to do on the desktop? Because on the desktop, you can get it to millions of people very quickly. You switch to AR, it's got to get that benefit for it. But it's the personalization might actually be there, right? So, okay, let's move on. Good job.
Sorry, I was muted. I'll be presenting for group 7. Our idea is also very similar. It's to use AR in medical education and training. Before becoming doctors, medical students spend years learning and practicing their skills to prepare themselves to deal with something that is simultaneously very complex, very unpredictable, and very fragile. That is the human body. Traditionally, they've been practicing with all sorts of models, mannequins, as well as cadavers. But such practice, while being rather effective, has its drawbacks too. No model can recreate the functioning of human body and its organs, and practicing with live patients can be rather risky due to possible errors. So the AR prototype that we came up with is to help medical students learn and understand and practice with virtual objects entirely resembling the human body and organs. The idea is to allow students to view the overlaid AR view and see different parts and organs in motion. We'll be displaying supportive information on hover and text, and they can understand how these different parts work together, and they can apply different filters for skeletal, muscular, nervous views, and allow them to view inside the body and view all those parts from all different angles. And some of the benefits of using this would be creating a realistic experience with low risk, high safety, and high efficiency.
Yeah, I think, I've had the same feedback to others with this anatomy. So I think a lot of people went to anatomy. I think that's a natural thought. A lot of people do think that, but anatomy is really not that difficult. So physiology part is much more useful. And so you also want to think about, again, can this be done on a desktop? And if it can, why do you need this in the physical space? All right, let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, so for group 8, we stuck with the science theme and focused on chemistry as a topic that could benefit from supplementing standard teaching methods with augmented reality. Based on the results of the research paper, we decided the novelty of augmented reality would help students focus on learning chemistry concepts. This is one of those instances where that's cool factor actually comes into play and is a positive benefit. So much like with physics, students might be better able to learn the topics or think the topics are easier to understand. We identified a couple concepts that are more difficult to grasp in the standard two-dimensional book format, and that is items and molecules. Much like with the magnetic fields cannot be seen by the students with naked eye, the makeup of an atom or the structure of a molecule cannot be observed either. This made these two ideal candidates for augmented reality. We chose carbon as a good candidate to represent both topics, as I'm sure many students have a difficult time understanding how that simple atom can form both graphite in their pencils as well as the diamond in a piece of jewelry. In our presentation, looking at the pile of, scroll this over, looking at the pile of carbon would display the atom, further breaking it down into the 6 electrons, neutrons, and protons. Similarly, looking at the diamond or the graphite would show the intricate structures carbon molecules can form to create each substance. And then we have these lovely pictures down here because my drawings were horrible up top. So thank you.
Okay. So I like that there's possibly the animation component of what you've got going on here. Again, I think really, while the topic is really strong, you have to think is how many times is somebody going to use AR? Are they going to constantly want to lift something up, take a look at these objects, or is this going to be a part of a one-time use case? So I think thinking about how that's all going to play out for this sort of domain? Is this something that students are going to use over and over? And what's the motivation over, again, presenting all this on as a desktop, right? A desktop application. Okay, all right, let's move on to the next group, group 9.
Yeah, so hi, we're group 9. And so after discussing like certain topics like anatomy and chemistry, we chose to the field of civil engineering and architecture. So based on the findings on the paper, like in the paper, you could see that like dynamic virtual representation of electromagnetic field were superimposed like on the physical medium, to have a better understanding of the electromagnetic concept. So similarly, in this field of civil engineering and architecture, computer generated images in CAD can be superimposed, onto a user's view of the real world in 3D. So and similarly in the paper, you could see that electrons and magnetic fields were visualizing them were understood by the students better through 3D representation. So similarly, one of the biggest impacts AR has had on the construction industry is the ability to visualize a project more realistically through AR. So architects and civil engineers can show their designs to clients as it would look in the proposed sites. So the interface, so you can see that in the interface we have used AR to superimpose computer generated images created in CAD onto a user's view of the real world, so that it creates a composite or augmented view. So if you see the left screen, the left side is the real world elements such as a road and the buildings on either side of the world, either side of the road, the street, and on the right side you can see the augmented thing. But here also the buildings and the road are real, but the excavation that we have created using these blue lines, it's full, it's based on AR, and the underground pipes are not real. So all this, the excavation is virtual, and the pipes are also virtual, and they're just computer models. Okay, so these kind of virtual excavations can help the civil engineering students in the surveying process.
Yeah.
For the
I get the idea here. So I think it's a really this area, and if you want to read up more, Mark Billinghurst actually talks about using this sort of work in reconstruction projects too. So whenever after earthquakes, to rebuild buildings and things like that. So this is, I think, a very hot area of research right now about how to use this in the architecture field. So good job with that.
So this is the image that we actually recreated.
Cool.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you,
thanks.
Thank you.
Where'd you get that image?
We got it from a architecture website that focus on AR.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Last group.
Hello. So I would like to present for group 10. As the paper states that AR technology was beneficial for understanding invisible structures and intangible and abstract concepts. Hence, we thought AR would find a good use in the field of astronomy and astrophysics to study the various celestial objects in the universe. So, as AR would make these otherwise complex fields much more engaging and easier to understand for beginners. So, this is our proposed design. We propose using either smart glasses or handheld devices like a mobile phone to view the interface. The interface will be, so the physical device can be used to look at the sky, and the user would be able to see the names of the various celestial objects that are present there. Then the user would be able to choose any one of those objects, and they would be able to see an augmented version of the celestial body, like here. So the user can rotate the 3D image and see the 360 view of that celestial body. They can zoom in and view at a particular portion of it if they like to. So basically, they will be able to experience the celestial body right in front of them as if it was present there physically. Also, then the user would be able to click on that image, and they would be given with several options. The options could be about the formation of that body, the composition of the body, information about its orbits and the way it rotates, its mass and size, atmosphere, history, and all of that things. So the user can select any one of those. Suppose if they select formation, they can see actually how the body form. Like they can see right in front of them the actual formation of that body. They can view the history of the body. So we are using textual and visual form with the help of images and videos to educate the user about the various aspects of a particular celestial body. This would, we feel that this would make astronomy and astrophysics a very interesting subject for beginners to learn, and which would pique that interest in it, and then would basically motivate them to learn, dig into it further. So these options would actually help the user to study
2
celestial
minutes.
bodies in depth.
Okay. All right. So the one thing I would say is you would think about where's the user going to use this system, right? They'd be outside, they can be at night looking up at the stars. And you really want to do a lot of user evaluations of what do they want to know at that moment? Because some of this information you might want to learn just on your own, just reading a website. You have to have it in the moment, right? So I think I think about my kid. He's 11, who loves astronomy. He looks up the stars. He's got his app. He sees all the constellations overlaid. At that moment, what does he want to know when he looks at a planet or a star, right? And so thinking about in that moment, studying the user and what their goals are is going to be important. Okay. All right. That gets to everybody. Thanks for the super quick time. I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. So thank you. Class is dismissed, but obviously after this is office hours, I'm happy to stick around. I'm going to get a little bit of water, but class is dismissed. Happy to answer more questions from you all. Okay, so I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Mohammed, I had a question.
Yeah.
So the IRB thingy that the IRB training that you asked to submit, it's 802. But when I did it in 2018, it used to be 803, so it was 2 different trainings. Is it possible to just upload that, or do I have to redo this training?
I think IRB, okay, if your previous training is not expired, you can submit the old one.
Okay, so it would consist of two documents. I will zip it then, I guess.
Okay, so if you go to IRB, there's a list of trainings you have completed. If you can just send a screenshot of that, that should be good too.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, I'm back. Hold on a second, close my door. All right. How can I help you all? So Mohammed, I know that we probably have a longer conversation, right? So is there anybody here that isn't on your team that has a short question? Is everybody here on your team?
Yes, it's Professor. Everyone is on. Everyone is on.
There's a team of 5, or somebody not here?
No. It's just 4 of us. So myself, Bharat, Shashidharan, and Vijay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Yagya is the only one who's not on your
Yeah,
team. So
yeah.
maybe this,
Yeah.
Yagya might
Yeah.
just not be at the computer right now.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh.
Professor. So
Or he was. Okay. All right. So first of all, I've seen a lot of your proposals, and I appreciate a lot of it. I appreciate that you all have been trying to come up with different ideas. Some of it is hard to get feedback via email. So that's why I think it's just better to have a conversation here.
Yeah.
All right. So where's your current thinking? Because the last time I saw you went back to the Rideshare app, and
Yeah.
I gave you some feedback. The Rideshare app has a lot of challenges in doing so. And so where are you all right now?
So Professor, like we are actually, now going through different. So previously we used to talk to users, identify their problems, and then we used to select. So like, be it the Rideshare or even the job tracking application, we used to talk to people and like based on their solutions, like what existing they used. So based on that, we used to come up and we used to see like what are the general problems they had, and so most of the general problems they had were like, be it the ride sharing app, like it was very time consuming to go and search for a post, and so all of these were head related problems too. So that's the reason actually we wanted to take, be it the ride share app or the job tracking application. So even in the job tracking application, many users didn't get a proper feedback, like since they were using just spreadsheets and docs, like and since the other applications like Hunter were paid, so they were not, they didn't get a prop, and they missed some deadlines for the online assessment what they were supposed to take for companies. So
Right.
so based on this interactions with the users, we actually thought of going ahead with this. But I understood from your reply that for the ride share it was tough to for
Yeah.
the testing is very tough to
There's
implement.
more than just testing. I mean,
Yeah.
security. If somebody used your app and got attacked while using your app because somebody posted, so I mean, there's just so much risk with that one. Ride sharing, I think the job tracking one I thought was actually a pretty good choice. I just need you to consider, because see, here's the problem with what I was trying to point out to you. You said, hey, because I thought job tracking, by the way, I thought that was a pretty decent project to work on, right? And so like, you all understand the challenges there. You're going to get a lot of people to try it out.
Yeah.
That part's not a problem, but what am I going to do? I'm going to type in job tracking app in Google and see what shows up. That's the first thing that I did, right? And then Hunter comes up. Like, okay, so what do you all think about that? And you said, well, that one costs money. Well, here's the problem. If you build something, that's going to cost money too. You haven't solved anything, right? I mean, if you build something, you're going to have to charge for it. So what have you solved? You haven't solved anything, right? Okay. And so here's the problem. So then I said, well, what is the problem? So you say, what are you trying to get at? Like, what's the underlying component that you're trying to solve here? Because you're focusing on. So remember we talked about root cause. Like, what is the actual difficulty people are having here? What are you going to try to tackle?
Professor, here what we see was on the other apps, they don't get the feedback on what dates do they enter. Suppose it's all manual entry towards the dates for particular companies and so on. So people tend to make manual mistakes, and that would cost them a lot during this thing. So our thing was to give feedback so that we'll check if it's beyond the current date, if they enter the wrong year or the wrong month. So we would probably give them a feedback saying, no, this is not the right date. You can please try on it, or then give them a feedback on all their entries to see that they've entered the correct details in the end. Because as we check the other apps like Telco and others, they didn't give the feedback on what they entered and so on. So we thought that would be one of the things, with like giving them the feedback to enter the correct date or to enter the details.
Okay, all right. So I love that you're you're starting to hone in on a problem. Okay, so I like that you're honing in on a problem, but the question is that really the biggest problem that people have? It's like they can't type in a date correctly. That's
no. So they also, that is just one of the problems. So like like even we ourselves use spreadsheets for tracking our applications, and so the problem with that is like sometimes I have to go through, like in the LinkedIn, if you see, like they might keep reposting the jobs again and again. So like I sometimes might even apply to a job that I've already applied. So So in the spreadsheet, that kind of concerns are not addressed. I don't know if I mean, if
So let me point out, Vijay actually said a problem. He said data entry causes errors.
Okay.
That's a problem. What you're talking about again is something totally different. See,
Okay.
Mohammed, whenever I talk with you, you tell me a bunch of different features that you want.
Okay.
I'm telling you, get to the root problem. Vijay actually said a problem. He said errors in data entry are the problem.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to focus on that, that's great. But then I've got questions on whether that's really something you're going to be able to find. Are there really that many errors that you're going to find? So Vijay, that's why I say, hey, what is your problem? You keep on telling me a lot of features. Well, I wanted to look for duplicates. I wanted to do this and that. What's the Vijay actually said the problem is there's a data entry error issue. Like that's the root cause problem. The root issue is I'm going to not only do with dates, but I'm going to do this with every field. I'm going to check whether the data entry is correct. So you see how his so I don't think that's the right way to go real fast. I don't think that's the most effective problem to tackle, BJ, but at least we can discuss the problem. So whenever I kept on saying, and I know, Mohammed, you were getting perhaps a little frustrated with me. I understand that.
No.
I said, what's your problem? You understand what you're talking about is just features. And I'm trying to get you, like, this is a computer science. You think like a computer scientist the way we got trained. I'm a comp sci person. I got all my degrees in computer science. So that I'm talking about us. We think about code. We think about, well, if I wrote a code that looked for dupes, then that would solve stuff, right? Well, that's just a feature, right? I'm saying, what's the difficulty that students are having? What's the problem that they're having? So what Vijay, let me explain why. What he said is because they have to do everything manually, there's a lot of errors that happen because of that. And so we're going to solve the manual entry, or we're going to do a error checking as our HCI principle or concept that we're applying to solve the problem. Okay. Now, again, then we can debate whether that's a good problem to tackle. Right, but what he's throwing in is an active problem, and so I just want to give you kudos, Vijay, for saying, hey, here's what I'm seeing that people are making. Then we can discuss that. And then my question to you is, if you talk to students, is that the biggest problem they have? Is this errors in their spreadsheets? Is it an error checking thing, or is it something that you need to automate, getting the data from a source, for example? And so then I can ask you further on questions about it, and we can debate. Is it error checking the thing that you need to do, or do you need to do automated, let's say, scraping from popular FANG posting sites, right? Facebook.
The thing was, most of the thing, like all these were already being tracked on the LinkedIn websites, or all those were separate. Suppose if we get into a referral, or someone refers us to a particular job site, we won't be able to track that separately along with their credentials and so on. So we thought we would give them extra so that they could use the email, and for each of the sites, they have their own email and password to it. So we automatically click on that. It'll automatically, you don't have to keep, the user does not need to keep on track with all the passwords and the credentials for each of them. And also the other thing was, on these other spreadsheets, we had to technically segregate the rejected and the other statuses separately. So that was little time consuming, and it was little overwhelming that when we asked few people, they say they had to literally do everything. So we thought we could automate that and give them a better solution to it.
Yeah, so we could probably combine all the rejected mails, so rejected jobs, so they don't have to go through it again.
We're getting back to features again, right? So that's a feature, but we can. Let's focus on problem. Mohan, do you have any insights?
Another problem that we could say is redundant postings on various websites. So that's something the student might actually face as a problem, because there's going to be many redundant job postings on various sites. So that, I guess, thinking of a problem, I guess we could consider that as one of the problems, along with the data entry error checking.
And I'm looking at like what you guys saying, and yes, you're directly jumping to solutions, and that's where like Dr. Locke is saying you're building features for those things, and any company can go and build that. But if you look at what problems you're saying, if you take a step back and see the overall picture, you're describing the whole process of job application. And if you look at that process and think, okay, all those problems appear at a particular stage, and this is how I'm going to build a solution depending on what users are saying to me. Then first identify the problem and then jump to a specific solution you're going to build.
Yeah, and let me go put in here, because you're actually trying to solve the problem of the whole pipeline is actually really hard, right? That means finding positions, tracking the application, seeing whether you're rejected or accepted. That's probably outside the scope of this class. If you just chose one part of that, that would already be really hard. Like, for example, figuring out which jobs to apply for so you can be strategic. So you don't do duplications and things like how do I know how to look for a position? Like that alone would be very difficult. And you can focus on that. You don't have to do the rest of the pipeline, because that's a lot to build. Because so my point is, you're not trying to solve. So you're focused on, I want to solve people getting a job. It's like, whoa, that's a hard problem. There's so many places, okay? Or maybe you just tackle the middle part, which is saying, okay, once I know which jobs I've applied, how do I know where I am in their processes? That alone would be really hard to do. You can just focus on that. So somehow you get, so just get people to fill that in, or you just focus on the back part of it, which is to say, hey, okay, I'm in the interview phase. How do I track who are my contacts of these people? So my point is, don't try to do the whole thing. It's too big.
Okay.
Right. So if you just focus on one part, then you can identify what are your challenges there and really zone in. So personally, I like the first part. And my first thought would be, so Mohan, I think you gave great advice. I think the first part would be really interesting to dive into is to just, which jobs should I apply for? Right. Am I applying for the right jobs? That's the problem that you have. You see, the problem is, am I applying for the right jobs? That's the problem. Part of the problem is that they've got duplicates. I get one via LinkedIn and I get one via some other job site, right? I go to Indeed or Monster or something, right? Yeah. So if you, the problem is, I don't know that how can I apply for the best jobs that I'm qualified for? Okay, now you go talk to people. Now you go talk, okay, how do you go find that? What are the sources you use? Why don't you use these apps? Do you pay somebody to do that, or what is it? And then you can find out from there. You can say, okay, here, now that I see how people are trying to tackle, here are the issues that people have within that. You don't have to track them once they apply. You can give this to people. And so this becomes very simple to give to people, that they can think about this. If somebody came up to you and said, hey, I've got this app that I built for my class, and if you run it, you'd be a part of it. It'll help you find jobs that you can apply for over the next couple of weeks. How many of you would say no to that? Nobody. You'd be like, okay, I'll test it out. Okay. Now, and then they'll say, well, the main thing that this thing focuses on is going to help. I'm making this up, but find out your classes that you took, and it'll look at common job sites and it'll scrape something in, or whatever this is. But my point is, I want you to focus on just one part of this whole pipeline. Don't try to do the whole thing.
Yeah, best purpose.
Right. Okay. And then within that one space, you can really say, okay, I have talked to people. The problem that they're having is they don't have a strategy, or they don't know which jobs are the most appropriate, or they get information from multiple sites and they can't aggregate that, or whatever that is. And you can say, here's I find this HCI solution that I've been reading research papers on. I'm going to try to apply that, see whether that improves the process. Right. So then you could go to the HCI world and read research papers on how to aggregate data from multiple sources, right? Or how to present, and so you would read papers on how people organize information, or how people would want that. So you're not going to do resume sorter. You would actually go on there. You're not going to search in Google Scholar for like job database or whatever like that. You're going to read research papers on how people search for information. You'd probably get a search paper. You would get some sort of paper that studies how people organize information that they gather. And you can say, I'm going to use those techniques to this problem. And that's how I'm going to build my solution. Because what I'm seeing too much of is, well, I want to find duplicates. Well, I know how to write that code to find dupes, right? Find duplicates, simple. You're already focusing so much on the code you're writing. That's why I kind of say, like, no, let's focus first on the challenges. So my recommendation coming out of this is, I think you have a good job in job tracking. I think that would be very easy to try to do evaluation. You're going to be able to easily do, the problems yourselves in this space. So that's good. I want you to just don't try to tackle the whole thing. You can see it's just way too hard. You would need, I mean, the reason why those places like Hunter and all those things cost money, because they have a huge team. They probably have hundreds of people working there. It's expensive. You don't have 100 people, right? So focus on one part. I think the first part is probably the easiest part. It's my recommendation. So there, really, when you're talking with folks, you have to do that theming. So they're going to be talking about all these issues. Take a step back and go, what is the root thing that they're struggling with, right? And then say, hey, when I read the research papers, I'm seeing these concepts apply. I want to apply those solutions that they're finding to this problem. And this is why I'm proposing the solution. Okay, so
we did think about like 2 other topics that we could actually work on. So could I just quickly tell you the problem for those and like a minute?
Sure.
So, one of them was if a student is studying or like doing some work, he often gets distracted from other sites such as Facebook or his phone or Instagram or anything as such. So we thought of having a Chrome extension that monitors how active he is on the particular site or anything that's job related, or the tabs that are job related, related to the work he's actually doing right now. And if he does go away from it for like extended amounts of time, it kind of tells him that, hey, you've been going out of, what you're supposed to be doing.
Okay, so
the problem.
You started off with here's the difference. Okay, start off with a great problem. So you actually did a good job with the problem, but now you went to the solution.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have.
You didn't. You should have said, we're going to read research papers on how to keep people on task. We're going to read research papers on how to present information. Like you already have that. You've already built I already know what you started talking. I already know. Okay, I'm going to load a Chrome extension, and it's going to do these. It's going to start counting on these websites how much time I spent, and it's going to either do some pop-up boxes, or it's going to. Oh, you already started building it. It's like, no, you need to let research come in. You say, hey, the problem is people are trying to study and get distracted. I get distracted all the time, right? Okay, I get that. There's a Chrome extension that, by the way, wipes out your newsfeed. It actually works really well. It just wipes out your newsfeed. It gives you a pithy quote, like some random wisdom. I really like it. You should check it out. Okay, so one, you said, hey, the problem is that people are having too much time. Now, I'm going to read research papers and we've read some research papers on how to provide feedback, how people organize their time, how people want to, what are solutions for distraction in user interfaces, how to get people's attention. So I'm going to combine these concepts, and here's why I plan on building. Okay, so again, the problem research papers then tell me what you're building based on what you're read. But so that, I mean, there are lots of those productivity apps out there, right? There are lots of them. So, one question is, if there's so many out there, why are any of you installed the productivity app on your Google Chrome? Anybody have a Google Chrome productivity? Well, why is yours suddenly going to work? Right? So you have to think about that. Yeah, so that's not a bad problem too. So again, that one's pretty good because it's very, very tight and focused, very simple to test, but I would want the research to say, hey, this is our approach to it.
Right. So I shouldn't have gone ahead to the solution. I should just proceed to the problem and then read a few research papers, seen things, and then thought about a solution to that problem.
Right. Yeah. Right. But I mean, so in terms of a problem, you explain the problems. Like, hey, you've got a lot of work that you need to do. We've got a lot of distractions that are drawing our attention. That's a problem for students. It's probably gotten even worse during the pandemic, right? It's probably even worse now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Professor, there's another problem with it's like if we are getting groceries for the house and the bill needs to be split. We usually use Splitwise for splitting it amongst our roommates, and oftentimes we need to go through the bill 3 times because certain people like share certain things. So I might use tomatoes with another roommate, and so there's always a split where you go through for each person and then you have to like manually calculate each thing. So we thought of like creating an interface or a web app or something that helps you quickly iterate through this just once by scanning the bill, or I don't know, something like that. So something to solve this problem where rather than calculating it yourself.
I appreciate you catching yourself from trying to solve the solution. Yeah. I appreciate that. Okay, that's good. All right, we're making progress here. Yeah. honestly, I also try to solve this. I mean, as soon as you started talking, I also started building, oh, you have an AR app where you just hold the phone over and do edge detection, do all the words, things. I think that one's going to be really hard to do, to be honest with you. Scope wise, that's going to be tough. Even testing is not that super simple because you'd have to wait. I mean, how often do people go grocery shopping, right? Maybe once every week, once every 2 weeks. So you're only going to get that a couple times. So from a problem perspective, I think you would find that's a pretty interesting problem. I don't know whether you'll find an interesting solution.
Right.
That's my challenge there. You know, I get it. I remember those issues with my roommates, and back then we didn't have Splitwise. We had just a calculator, so that's even more challenging. But I think that one, again, good problem definition. I think you'll have a harder time finding a solution. So I would steer you less that way. Again, this is your problem. I want you all to work on something you all are choosing yourself. So I'll let you choose it. If you want to do ride sharing, I can only tell you, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. This is, you have to have your own direction. But hopefully, I think you've got two parts. Again, I think the job tracking one, and I think your what was the other one that you had? I already forgot.
The distraction, the distraction one from the
distraction one, right? Those are both great topics. Finding some research, the whole part there is finding the research papers to back it up. And then, so take this time, you've got 3 days, do a good job here. You still get, and this is project 2. I'm giving you a lot of feedback now so you can have a good experience there. All right. Yes, yes, go ahead.
Like within the part of the job tracking, right? Like I thought of one part of the pipeline where like when we have a lot of interviews scheduled for us, say there are 3 to 4, students find it difficult, like what topics that they have to prepare for that interview. And then like what problem was that like for each and every interview, what topic or what concepts they are going to test us on. So finding materials for that particular topic within the internet or videos related to that. So the problem is like people finding a set of topics for all the interviews together, and then like finding material to prepare for that. So like I read an abstract of the paper, I haven't completed it yet. Like it shows like where when you are solving a problem on LeetCode, it shows you the necessary topics to be learned for that as a Chrome extension kind of thing. So we could use the concept of that paper to apply to this problem to like consolidate the topics necessary to prepare for the interview, and then like give materials like how to proceed with that. So will this be a good problem and a research paper to go proceed with?
So it's an interesting problem. I think the problem, you did a good job there saying, hey, how do I individually prepare for an upcoming interview, right? There's a lot of stuff. You can't prepare for everything. How do I do that? The challenging part is how are you going to test this? Like that one, the testing might be very difficult because you have to give this stuff for a couple of weeks. You'd have to get people that got lots of offers. You see what I'm saying? It's going to be a little bit challenging to do that. I love the problem. I think the problem is actually a really good problem. I can already start seeing a ton of, and I like that you said, hey, I read a research paper that thought about applying this concept. So I like that part of it. The challenging part with that is how you're going to test that. So you're going to have to get 30 people with lots of different offers, interviews coming up, and then they'll have to use it for a couple of weeks to do some of the lessons and things like that. So that would be the challenging part there. And if you all think that that's doable, then go ahead.
Actually, we have a community here. People like they are preparing lots of interviews. Like we are getting calls like day by day. So I know of a few people. I know few people who are actually having like 5 to 6 interviews scheduled for the upcoming weeks.
Mohan, what are your thoughts?
So if we could find people like those, like we could give them.
I think it's good, Mohan.
I think I can attest to that. It's easy to find 30 people with multiple offers.
If so, again, you see, the reason why is I want to commend you too, Shased Haran. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I'm going to try. I apologize ahead of time, but I want to get better. So I want to just say good job on you're identifying a problem that people have. They don't know how to prepare for that because everybody wants, they might want different topics. So people struggle with how to manage their time. Right, so that part is good. So you start off with the main problem, and then you got to the underlying problem. Underlying problem, they've got too many topics. You don't know which ones to study for the next interview, right? So that's how you went from, instead of a feature set, you actually said, okay, the big picture is, I don't know how to spend time. So I think you did really good. And then I want to commend you. You said, hey, when I looked at research papers, I read something with this on this similar problem, but in another place. I want to see whether we can apply that. See, because that makes logical sense. It works in this other domain. I want to apply in this domain. Okay, that's what makes it. So I'm trying to show you my thinking about why I think this is a pretty good problem. So I think that actually is also another. See, you all actually have lots of good topics that you had in your group. I really want to commend you. You did. There are several really good problems here. So I hope you're not down on yourself. I know you might have been kind of spinning your wheels, but I want to give you credit where you all have now improved your problem. Thanks. You've read research papers. You've now come to 3 different viable projects in this class. So I think that's doable. You've got a group of people that are willing to put in that information and then are willing to use your system for a couple of weeks. I think that would be a pretty good project.
Yeah. So I think we'll choose the one from these 3. I think that should be fine. And then
so kudos to your team. Hopefully you got something positive out of this meeting where you really feel good about yourself and that you all are thinking that way, but you're changing your thinking. Hopefully you come out of this. I already saw some improvement already on how you've come out of this. It's just that
we had the wrong idea of like what a problem was. As we were presenting, we were just thinking of features, and as we spoke to you right now, we got like a much better idea of how we should actually approach this project 2 and go about it.
You owe me something. Okay. So here's something you owe me. All right. Since I gave you my time, I want you to please shoot a YouTube video. You know where I'm going with this, Mohan. You're going to shoot a YouTube video of how you started and how you changed. And I want to, because I want to show that to future versions of the class so that other students like you can watch that video. So if they email me with a bunch of features, I can say, hey, here's a student group from spring of 2021. Watch this video. Okay. So it can be like, it can be at the end of the semester. It doesn't have to be today. Okay. But you owe me a video that's 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be long, but just talk about how this process got better for you. And so you can help a future group. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm trying to compress this 30 minutes that I just spent with you all to a 5-minute video. And then you could say, the future version of me, 25 minutes or 30 minutes, because I need to send them this video. And actually, not only that, I mean, you're just trying to reduce the stress on another team, right? That's what I want you to help the next group of students.
Right.
Sure.
Yes.
Happy to help.
And we also want to thank Mohan for, he helped us guide our way through all these topics. So
he is very patient. I would agree. He's more patient than I am. So you are very fortunate to have a TA like Mohan. I think you all have been in other classes where the TA has not been as useful as Mohan. So yeah, we are very, very fortunate.
So one more thing, like we had the deadline for submission for the report today evening. Like since we are coming up with this, we need to like talk with people and then write this. Like, is it possible to request for an extension for this submission?
Well, again, if you look at the syllabus, it says you get 3 days and then you get a late penalty, right? But late penalty is very small. I mean, just it's 20%, very small. So you get 3 days. So take the time. So this is not a rush. I want you to do this right, because 20%, if you do all the projects correctly, you'll get an A. Okay, that's not hard to do. Like this, I want you to do it right. So take the 3 days. Take your time. Turn in a good project, good report. Yes, you're gonna have to work hard because you know a whole lot of time you have to do a lot of stuff. I get that, but take the 3 days and just so I mean that's what Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So you've got time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would be my. If I were a student, I would say, okay, let's just eat the 20. Hey, I don't have to get graded on something, but they're giving us a chance. I don't have to get graded on something we try to throw in today, which might be a hot mess. We're gonna take that, and we've set ourselves up for a successful semester. But that's a worthwhile trip.
Sure.
Definitely, bro. So we'll work on this like for the 3 days, and then we'll submit the report on Monday.
All right.
Just want to make sure it's right. That's it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, professor.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mohan. Thank you.